a little bit more about the symbols.
And Liam had the brilliant idea that I should really maybe go into more about the pronunciations, and so I think I can just kind of as well to start here. And
that's my biggest challenge.
Well,
pronunciations of these words with which I'm not familiar.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're Hebrew
Yeah.
as well, which comes with an extra kind of, throat clearing on some of them.
Yes.
Oh yes.
Some that,
to say
yes.
the least.
Which is the one we're doing today, actually. So, let me just talk about that a little bit. Of course, with this is very much like a Golden Dawn Hermetic, Kabbalistic Hermetic Golden Dawn style temple. So we've got a combination of Enochian and Hebrew. So now the Hebrew, I guess, is of course the Hebrew language when it doesn't really use vowels.
No.
So the vowels.
The language has vowels.
The language has vowels.
Writing.
The writing, thank you. The writing doesn't have vowels. So we have to kind of go with what is sort of considered the norm. But if I don't really know where to go with this. If we just kind of run down the lightning flash, and because I wanted to mention this anyway in today's lesson, and it's called the lightning flash, and it's illustrated very well on this poster that goes from these are the God names in Hebrew, so that is Eheye, and into if this is one of those. Of course, in English, we would probably say chokma, but I think the correct pronunciation is something like, it's like a chokma, something like that. To bina, to hesed, to gebora, to Tifereth, to Netzach, to Hod, to Yesod, and Malkuth. And we did, of course, the meditation on Malkuth last week. So the idea is that during the process in the context of the creation, say, of the universe, that's the macrocosm would be this is a path of energy or God's intention that flowed this way to create the universe. But of course, it's also a map of kind of human consciousness, and in the microcosm, this could be seen as a path where a kind of inspiration flows through into manifestation in all regards.
Because it's back and forth between the left and the right column.
Yeah. So no, it's just its path, and that's why it's called. It's always that a balance is that we strive to maintain a balance.
Yeah.
The yin and the yang, the balance. The first center path here, Tifereth. I think Tifereth translates as beauty, and it is about the balance. And it's also the sun. So these also then have astrological attributes.
And there's a figure in the background there. Is that?
Yeah, that would be a person.
Power chakra there?
That would be a person, and that's the chakra in the throat.
Which one?
Daath. It doesn't exist.
Oh, okay.
The whole idea around Daath, the chakra Daath, the sphere Daath, is sort of just faintly illustrated there. It is not one of the Sephiroth. It is not something involved in about the creation of the universe. It is about human thought. So once it's all done, it's as though this is the sphere of our kind of upreaching. So here we have the abyss, these faint lines here. And so what's above the abyss is basically God, Godhead, or source energy. Source energy unpolarized, source energy polarized, and then begins the process of manifestation after the abyss. So Deoth, the one we in the middle pillar, we'll again talk about it as a lavender orb of light. Yehovah Elohim, which is actually borrowing the God names of Yehovah and Elohim, of the two supernals, to create Yehovah Elohim here. So it's just the idea of our upreaching for understanding, and the idea also of consciousness or coming into extension to us to create this sphere of higher thought. Then you can get really into it, and I know in the traditional Golden Dawn stuff has this Christian tinge to it, where they talk about the fall of man from Eden. And in that regard, this sphere can be seen as Earth, or the Garden of Eden, where things were before the fall. But I don't buy that myself. I don't think there's been a fall. And if there is, it's just necessary part of the process. Nothing to feel guilty about.
It was a gaining of consciousness.
A gaining of consciousness,
As opposed to the tinting, the negative tint is Christian.
Who told the truth? God? No, seriously.
Yeah,
In
the
Genesis,
serpent.
God said, if you eat of the fruit, you will, on that day, you will die. But they didn't die.
No.
And the serpent said, if you eat of the fruit, you will know.
You will know the truth.
As God, you will know the secret. You know.
The tree of knowledge. The knowledge. True knowledge.
The trouble is that with the knowledge comes other stuff.
There's a cost.
Other stuff.
There's a cost to
Mortality.
Yeah, and that was effectively a kind of fallenness.
Yeah.
Of a sort.
Of a sort.
Yeah, in one way,
But then you wouldn't have manifestation.
Yeah.
You know. So if you didn't have the fall, we'd all just be happy orangutans living in the forest.
This is great to be here and do this with you guys. It's like other people are studying this stuff. I've been in my head for about a year and a half.
So what I really wanted to point out here is that called the lightning flash, and as a path of kind of Kether, the crown is even before ideation. It's energy into manifestation. And hence the expansion of the universe. There's always more energy coming into more manifestation.
Because there's 3 levels above there, right?
And there's also, the idea is that there's four elements, there's 4 complete trees like this. It would be mapped that this would be 1, 2, 3, 4. And I just want to mention it quickly. I don't really want to go into it today or anything because there's so much to talk about. But that's where the idea of the demonology and the clip-off come from. So the Sephiroth are the angelic realms that we're working with, the spheres of God's creation on the way to this closed system, the complete system of the 10. But there's a theory that when energy is pouring in here, and before the system is a closed loop or tight or sealed, as it were, by the 10th sphere, energy was leaking out. So you have a clip-off, or the negative, the potentially evil sphere representation of each one. That each one has a dark side, as it were.
Which is balance again.
Which is balance again. And then you have your good evil and your bad evil. But we'll talk about that another time.
Yeah.
Which brings me to, so as far as the Hebrew goes, there's really, my friend cohort in the original Serendipity Celestial College, Emmett, like to say, and I have to agree that, not even even the most wise rabbi today knows how people were talking 3,000 years ago. They don't, so we just try, and we're doing pretty good. And even if we screw it up, we might be doing it like they did in 2000 BC.
As opposed to 6,000.
Well, it's true. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, we can't even, for the most part, understand Middle English. Somebody spoke as they're talking, we'd be going, and that's just a couple hundred years ago.
Oh.
So,
Yes. F's
language,
means S's, and who
yeah,
knows how it was
language
pronounced,
changes
right?
and develops and is pronounced.
So,
different.
however, we get back to that mystery that you mentioned last week, Richard, is about Jehovah. Oops, I better go that way. Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey. So it is said that is that more correct than saying Yahweh or Jehovah, or, just how is it pronounced? Yeah, come on in. We're not,
No, don't come in.
Hang on. Let me move.
I gotta get decent.
Here we are. Come on
Yeah.
in. Do you want a chair, Nina, or
That's
do you want the
a later
floor?
class.
That's another class.
Yeah, that's OT. That's full on OT.
Wrong kind of class.
Yeah.
So
Okay, here's a-
I'll just keep talking.
I'll just sit here.
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
just sit there.
just sit there. There you go. We'll find it. Do you want? Hello, Missy. Do you want a chair? Or
I'm actually sit on the floor or on the couch with you guys if you don't mind cuddling with me.
What's that?
Just give her a little room. Give her a little room. There you are.
What
Lots
do you
of,
think
she's
she
not
needs?
that big. How big do you think
Come
she
on, now, can you
is? Gracious. She's just a little bit of a thing. See?
Yeah.
So, I'll just keep talking. So, Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey, Jehovah. I mean, how
Pronunciation.
there, of course, there's this whole mythology built up about, well, if somebody actually pronounces the
Right.
names of God correctly, that's the end of the universe, because we got it all figured out. Don't need us anymore. It's all over.
Arthur C. Clarke story from a long
Childhood.
novel called The 9 Million Names of God.
Oh yes, yes,
And
yes.
There's monastery is when they record all 9 million names, the world will end, right?
Yeah.
And in the story, they get a computer
Oh no.
and run through it real quick, and this guy's
Bad idea.
the protagonist, he's installing the computer, and when they finally get the 9 million, the universe starts going out around them.
Poop, 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 poop. Oops.
Whoops.
Maybe I shouldn't have done that. So there's a lot of controversy about how that's correctly pronounced. I'm just generally going to go with I mean, when I do the light sphere, the Rosy Cross ritual, it ends with Yod, Hey, Shin, Vav, Hey, pronouncing each letter of Yeshua, and Jehovah. That's what I'll go with. I don't think there's any kind of Hebrew tradition about pronouncing each letter individually. I mean, that seems
The tetra.
kind of made up,
Yeah.
or just you're saying the letters of the word of name of God instead of saying the name of God. I don't quite get that.
Yeah.
So, but feel free to use that if you're more comfortable with it.
Look how Robert used to say them. Robert, there was quite a quite a
You had to
song.
sing it.
He practically sung it the
You had to
way
sing
it
it.
was beautiful.
Which brings us to another idea about the vibration. So that's just something you'll have to practice at home. Instead of saying a hey yay, well, like when we're doing the middle pillar exercise, I would encourage people to join in and try to pronounce the words. The idea is that your in your imagination, which is everything, you vibrate the name of the deity in that sphere.
To the depths of eternity.
Oh,
If you
well,
can get
Here
that
we
far.
are.
Or the heights of eternity, come on.
Yeah.
So a hey, instead of just saying a hey, which translates, it's a God name for the crown chakra, it translates as I that am, I am, but it's to think of it more as a verb. It's not a thing. It's more a verb like I that am becoming. So hey, it would be hey. You don't have to go low. There's a tendency for me to oh, I gotta say it deeply now.
Yeah.
Hey.
I do think the same thing.
Because I'm being serious now. But it's still vibrating it if you go, hey. That's still vibrating it.
Some people whine it.
Oh.
It's a thing.
Ah.
It's a thing, actually.
Hey, like toning or something.
To get it really high and
Okay, please. All right.
apparently,
Break the glass.
yeah.
But before we start, then, as long as we're still talking about this, I brought out my tablet of Union, so we can mention. It's in.
But you're going to bring out an iPad.
No. Tablet of Union.
You got to hold it there longer. No, I noticed that when I watched the thing,
Oh, okay.
showing us some stuff, and it
Showing books, it's just too much, too soon.
Yeah.
I can't figure out this left and right business.
We'll have a special class on that.
I need the special class. So in Enochian, the Enochian list, so a quick blah blah blah. In I think it was 585, Queen Victoria the First. Would that have been not 685, 680 or 685?
Victoria the First was in 1835. She was
No, this is not Victoria. Then Elizabeth the First.
Oh. 16.
Okay, 1685. There's this fellow.
1654. I think.
There's thereabouts. John Dee.
John Dee. Yeah.
John Dee was a court astrologer and spy and alchemist for Elizabeth I.
Yes.
And he did this channeling with this fellow who was his materializing medium. So John Dee had all the info, and Edward Kelly was his sensitive. And it's interesting that Edward Kelly is always depicted wearing this tight hat, skull cap, that was to hide the fact that he had his ears removed for being convicted of fraud. So in the 1680s, that was 680s or whatever. 680s, 685, not 16. 16?
Yes.
16, it would
Elizabeth
be
the First
600.
was the 1600. She died in
1600.
1601.
Oh, I'm getting my years on next time.
1701.
Was it?
Wait.
We would have been
Fifth-
like back in
16,
Viking days and
16,
talking 700.
1685.
She died. No, she died in 1601. So the Elizabethan era was like 1554.
Thank you.
on.
Finally.
Yeah, it was
1585. We're going with that now.
Okay.
We are.
And Edward Kelly had been convicted of fraud, so he had no ears, but he was the channel for, and they, what they did is they came up with this whole language, the language of angels, angel language, and that's what Enochian is. It's all channeled by John Dee and Edward Kelly, and it's this whole language, and that's, so when we say, like, say for air, so we're doing these pentagrams, and the Eheye is how you start your spirit pentagram, same as the god name for up here, Eheye, and that is for the active air and fire, Eheye, and that. But then the second part is EXR, or the first one is EXRP, and that's the Enochian. So I just went, all that was just to say it's both Enochian and Hebrew. But notice how when it has a little circle in the middle, in the original books and the other books, in the Golden Dawn book and lots of these other books, it'll show spokes of a wheel in a circle. And I've seen people try to draw all these spokes. No, it's just a wheel. It's the motion of the wheel. That's what's important here.
Yes,
It's
not drawing the
You don't have to
spokes.
draw the spokes.
Where did this pentagram start? Bottom right? It started when
Yeah, where it says 1.
that's the start.
That's the start.
Just a little aside here, John D. 1527 to 1608.
Thank you, dear.
It's all in this fabulous book by Mr. Wang.
It's right there.
In my fantasy world,
Mm-hmm.
some important things happened in 1605,
Mm-hmm.
and I've made John Dee a character that he
Oh.
could go back and forth to the magical world. Well, he didn't write about it, but he did it, so I
Yes.
made him a character.
Oh, cool.
So I
Because
had
he
to
pops
research
in and
it.
out of this
Yeah.
Oh, right on.
through the veil or whatever.
Yeah, yeah,
She's doing that.
Very cool.
neat.
You were circling the center.
Circle. Spin.
Circle.
Spin. Motion. It's more
Motion.
motion, not a picture of a wheel.
So you say that while you do that, and then that while you do that. The
Okay.
circle.
So they say hey for the circle. It's Yesod. So in the Enochian, and why I brought that out is because you definitely pronounce each letter and vibrate and pronounce each letter.
Yay,
So,
What is it? How do you say it?
yay, so Y-A-Y? How would you do yay?
A.
hey,
A,
Yay.
hey.
There's 3 vowels in there.
That's right. Hey.
Hey,
And we're writing it out like that? How to
Yeah,
pronounce
sure.
it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fun.
So in the Enochian, it's each letter.
That's terrible.
E-X-R-P. No, E-X.
I hear you.
Mm.
I'm with you.
E-X. Oh my goodness. What am I getting wrong here? They're all E-X-A. Oh yeah.
Mm.
E-X-A-R-P. E-X-A-R-P.
Yeah.
So there's
Hakoma H.
just a little bit.
H. O. N. N. Ta. And D-E-T-O-M. So, in the Enochian, you're saying, vibrating each letter. You don't have to, of course, if you're in temple, if you want to kind of use the power of the word, then you're vibrating. You don't need to vibrate it if you're having a casual conversation in Enochian.
A casual conversation in the Enochian.
At the bus stop.
Yeah, at the bus stop,
Yes.
right, with the neighbors.
Yes, when you're practicing your Klingon and your Enochian.
Yeah, Klingons on one side, Enoch's on the other. Not
Yeah.
Ewoks.
Ewoks, not Enoch.
Oh,
Her.
interesting.
Ewoks.
He was her.
Mm.
And everybody's like,
So- I'm going to pause this and we're going to
Bulimic.
start it right again.
A little bit.
it's all good.
He's going.
Alex,
He was, I left the butter on top of the banana bread I bought.